I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this. We've heard so many theories, floating data center. What do you think about the idea that this is a showroom for Google Glass?
You know, I mean, it seems as plausible as anything. I guess, you know, my biggest concern is, quite honestly, and this is a problem with billionaires worldwide, I think, is they don't get that there's a fine line between really cool marketing stud and, oh my God, he's a psychotic billionaire. You know, it's this difference between being Richard Branson and being like, I don't know, Ernst Blofeld from the Bond, one of the Bond villains or something. It's like, whenever you start building barges in people's harbors, it starts to make people understandably nervous that there's something strange going on in their backyard, not least of which is the possibility from a Google marketing standpoint, that if you watched, you know, a movie like Waterworld or even Jaws, there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you start building expensive productions on water, not least of which is the set sinks.
Also, you know, this is a company that prides itself on making big bets on things like Google Glass, driverless cars, their new health company, Calico. Doesn't this seem a little bit frivolous?
Yeah, more than a little bit. I mean, I really, it feels almost sweaty in a sense that, you know, they're so desperate to have someone pay attention to what's happening in Google Glass, because there is this whiff about Google Glass of geek product, you know, that there really isn't a broad consumer interest in this thing outside of, you know, Robert Scoble and however many people he's connected to on Facebook. And so the problem for them is that, you know, how do you get beyond that kind of echo chamber of Silicon Valley and get real people, normals, as Ohm called them in the earlier segment, to actually know and care about a product that from their standpoint seems duplicative of a lot of things their cell phone does and quite honestly makes them look funny.
We actually spoke with the Coast Guard about this project, and they acknowledged that they did sign non-disclosure agreements, but not to Google, to the group that oversees this facility where the barge actually is. Would you say it's at all desperate that they're going to this length to market potentially Google Glass?
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's this idea that, you know, Apple's really good at this marketing thing. What could we do that would be really good at this marketing thing and get a lot of attention? And this is the kind of thing that what happens whenever, you know, there's a great line from the making of, I think it was Apocalypse Now, when they asked Francis Ford Coppola, you know, what went wrong when they were doing it. And he said, well, we had too much money and we spent too much time in the jungle and we slowly went mad. And there's a little bit of a whiff of that around what's happening here, that there's this, been watching Apple for too long, been watching their success at marketing new products and creating new segments and saying, hey, we have a new product, this is a new segment, why aren't enough people paying attention to it outside of the Silicon Valley echo chamber? And here's an attempt to really sort of, you know, redefine everything, and let's find a platform, you know, no pun intended, I guess, that will allow us to do that. And hey, there's, you know, a barge in the Bay Area that creates, sort of redefines shopping and ships and barges and glasses. It really does feel like an incredible plea for attention, like, quite honestly, like something, as I said earlier, like Blofeld might have come up with.
If indeed this is true, and we've actually seen reports that there are other similar barges on the East Coast, that there could be multiple barges out there. So if indeed these reports are true, how big an impact do you think a flashy marketing move like this will actually have on sales of Google Glass?
Somewhere between none and not much more than none. I just don't see how more awareness of Google Glass fundamentally changes the problem. The deep-seated problem for Google Glass is an absence of apps that really attract anyone outside of the Valley ecosystem, and they say, wait a minute, this is something that's different and more useful to me than my cell phone, or at least differently important, and so I'm going to buy one. And that's just not the case. And however many glasses you put on barges with people on party decks, that doesn't really change it. So the awareness is not the problem with Google Glass.